Deborah,
Yes, Winford.
there is a message just came on my screen saying that we can start.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't
Yes.
see it on mine. Good evening, good evening, good evening to our panelists. Good evening to our viewing members on this Zoom. Good evening to those who are tuning in from all over the world. Good evening to members of the public, interested persons who are linked in and raring to go. My name is Deborah Moore-Miggins, and I will be your moderator for tonight's discussion. And as we are all aware, we're calling tonight's segment Constitutional Amendment for Tobago's Autonomy Explained. And, you know, we have some of the most distinguished, recognized persons who can really contribute to this discussion tonight as our panelists, and we want to welcome them. They are Dr. Denise Sawyer-Fat Angus, and you know, none of these panelists need any introduction, so we're not gonna take time with doing it. She's well known to Tobago, well respected and revered. Equally so is Dr. Winford James, or distinguished son of the soil who has flown our flag so proudly for us elsewhere in Trinidad and Tobago and internationally. And Mr. Clyde Weatherhead, he is, we like to call him honorary something. And tonight he's no less honorary than any other time. Mr. Weatherhead is an attorney at law, and he has commented on national issues, and he has also been very concerned and also commented on Tobago issues. So we have one of the most eminent group of persons to handle tonight's discussion. And we certainly don't want to miss out on you members of the public. We are so happy that you are here and interested in this topic. And we welcome you, and I want to encourage you to make your voices heard. Give us your suggestions, give us your input when we seek it. And I recognize people like my dear friend, Ms. Shirley Cook, and I give you a special welcome, Shirley. I know you are one of those who always are at the forefront of matters concerning Tobago's development. So we're not gonna take any time, panelists. We really want to make the best of this 2 hours that is before us. And certainly we want to start. Let me tell you what I want to bring to the forefront tonight. We are now into a phase where we're looking at the proposed constitutional amendment. As you know, the document has been handed out far and wide. Everybody should get a copy of this. It's available. Just ask anybody and they'll tell you where it's available. But in this document, there are outlined 2 sets of bills. The first bill is the Draft Constitution Amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill 2020. And the second bill is the Draft Tobago Island Administration Bill 2021. And they do they purport to do 2 different things. I don't know if they accomplish it, but that's the idea behind the 2. So the Constitution, as you get from the title, the Draft Constitution Amendment Bill is aimed at addressing the constitutional changes that are required if Tobago is to be conferred any modicum of internal or let's say self-government. it is envisaged that you must tinker with the Constitution, and that is what this purports to do. The draft Tobago Island Administration Bill seeks to provide for administrative matters, the running of the assembly, the constituting of the assembly, the elections on the assembly, those everyday items that are not sufficiently powerful to go into a constitution. So when you approach it, that is the general basic approach that you take to the documents before us. So what I'm gonna do is ask our panelists to spend a minute, or certainly not more than two, giving us their idea, what ideas come to mind for them, having considered the draft that are before us. What are the good points? What are their feelings, their concerns, what questions, what are they happy about? Just share with us where you stand at this stage, having looked at the draft that is before us. Should I begin with my dear friend, Dr. Soyafat? Sure.
I thought you were going to sandwich me between the,
No, I'm not going to sandwich
the male
you.
energies.
You're a leader in your own right, you know that, and you're going to take out front.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely. Let me begin by commending and thanking the Tobago CivilNet volunteers, and I want to stress volunteers, for their steadfast contribution to Tobago's future. The virtual discussion of these bills is a great opportunity for all Tobagonians, and by extension Trinidadians, to participate and take responsibility to ensure that at the end of the day we achieve the big picture of self-government for Tobago. This document has been in planning for numerous, or too many to count, years of consultation across Tobago, and at least another 5 years at the level of the Joint Select Committee, where I understand that they have taken on, they've engaged persons with expertise, and I'm sure the accuracy of which will be tested over the next week as we continue to have discussions. My research and analysis of the document points to a number of key areas. Apart from some areas that are a bit, confusing, like take, for instance, one of the first areas is, they call the Constitutional Bill 2020, but in other areas of the document, it's 2021. So I think they need to clarify that. One of the areas for me, a big one, is in the schedule, where schedule number 5, the 5th schedule under administration, where I absolutely do not see where they have transportation under that schedule. I looked, I don't know if anyone can tell me, but I have not seen transportation in there. And therefore, who is responsible for transportation? Public transportation internally, the air bridge, we have a beautiful airport coming. How does Tobago, what is Tobago's involvement in that if we don't have any mention of it on that 5th schedule? What about the sea bridge? And when we think about the sea bridge, we think about all of those beautiful treasures we have lying beneath the waters in the harbor. Who has access to develop those if we want to go further with it as a tourism product? For me, those things are not clear within the schedule.
Well, it's been removed, Denise.
It's been removed.
It used to be in the 5th schedule,
correct,
but it's been removed.
Correct. So I have serious concerns with that, because if we have full responsibility for tourism in Tobago, those are key areas that we have to have clarified if we have to go forward. And, if we don't have some measure of control, I don't think that we would ever get our tourism product right, because that is the gateway to our tourism product, by air and by sea. and
Dr.
also internal transportation. Of course, I have many other areas, but I am sure they're going to be touched by the other panelists.
I think you have spoken from the heart. You've given us what touches you immediately. And so let me hear what Dr. James is willing to say on
May I
this.
yield to Mr. Weatherhead, our guest?
No, the moderator has called on you.
Okay.
Do it or
Don't
guess.
misbehave tonight.
Now, this particular
That's the
issue
boss. That's the
has a long history, and it goes back to the 1880s, the early 1880s, 1884, if you want to put a starting point. And so 137 years have passed. That is since the Tobago sugar industry crashed. Tobago not being able to mind itself was annexed to Trinidad. And everything was formalized, I think, in 1889. So quite more than a century has passed with Tobago trying to regain what it used to have before the early 1880s. So there's a long history. And if you come quickly to the present, there has been a clamor for Tobago to have more autonomy over its affairs. And that clamor has been shared by people like James Bigot and APT James, and we come down the road to A&R Robinson, and of course, the successors to A&R Robinson, the Ho-Choi Charleses, the Orville Londons, the Kelvin Charleses. They've come to the point where we are not happy with what exists. And what currently exists is Act number 40 of 1996. And that act itself, when it came out, was a triumph, but it was clear that it was not a perfect act. There were many things that were questionable. And what we have found now is that in the January 25th Tobago House of Assembly elections, we've been brought to a stalemate between the two major parties contesting. The 12 seat, with each winning 6. And that has caused a kind of a crisis because we have not been able to fully constitute the House, and the Executive Council from the previous term is acting in a holdover position. So we have been waiting for, hello?
So, Doc, I have to stop you at this point, so I get to your guest that you wanted me to.
That's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
So let me hear you, Clyde. What are some of the things, if any, that jump out at you at this juncture?
Sure. Good evening to everybody. And Deborah, I see you're still in office.
Yes. Stay there. I couldn't go home.
I'm in my home office. So this bill, and Denise says she's not sure if it's 20 or 21, but if it's going into the parliament as a new bill, it will be 21.
So it's a point that is confusing.
Yes. So the bill speaks again of self-determination as the 2018 bill did. And it remains with the same phrase, talking about the equality of status between Tobago and Trinidad, and then goes on to speak about the right of the self-determination for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and including the right of the people of Tobago to determine in Tobago their political status, freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. So if you say that, and you are speaking of unitary state of Trinidad and Tobago, I have not seen anywhere in the world where you talk autonomy or where you have a federal kind of arrangement that there isn't an overarching governmental arrangement and then specific arrangement to the particular parts or states. For example, the United States, in Canada, you have provinces and various things like that. So that whole issue of self-determination and what it means for Tobago, that's what I addressed in my first submission to the JST, on which they never asked me to come in and discuss further with them. The question of federal structure, That was recommended by the Dumas Committee, by the gift team, by the Prince Committee, and in 2011, there was a green paper that mentioned it. So what is it being striven for? Is it that there's to be a Tobago Island government and no Trinidad Island government, but simply a national government over Tobago Island government?
You got your honor of being the guest by being allowed to speak longest. So I want to appeal to all viewers, or those online, those who have linked in, to send us your questions, send us your concern. We want you to be very much, perhaps even more at the helm of tonight's program than even the panelists. So don't be afraid to either raise your hand or send your questions by Facebook only. I think the management has said, and we will deal with whatever your concern is. We want you to participate and to speak your view, as that is, I heard Dr. James saying, you would tell us that famous quote from the brilliant Ghanese gentleman a little later as to why we should all have our inputs into this document. Well, you know, gentlemen and ladies, this document is aimed at doing particular things, and we always have to, as attorneys, we learn, we keep the mischief that the legislation is intended to address or to rectify firmly in front of us. And whatever we do, we go back to the question, is it meeting or dealing with or eradicating the mischief that it is intended to eradicate? So hearing each of you, I get the impression that each of you has some sore point, some dissatisfactory element about the proposed draft, both of them it seems. May I ask you if there is anything commendable, great, that you love and are very impressed by, that you think can really contribute to the development and advancement of our beloved island? Does anybody want to share that with us? Seems no.
Well, I thought you would be calling on people. But
Well,
anyway,
I'm asking if anybody wants to share that.
I have looked at the bill, Deborah, and I have not found anything admirable, commendable about the bill where autonomy is concerned and where the mechanics for management in the Tobago Island government are concerned.
Okay, that's one view. Dr. Denise, have you, is there anything you can bring us hope and joy and comfort about this bill?
I think the mere fact that we will be given the public service and also I think it's the teaching service. Yeah, the Service Commission and the Tobago Service Commission and the Teaching Service, which I believe will bring some relief to the bugbears that our teachers in Tobago now face. And certainly if it is implemented within the right framework, I think that, you know, we could make some progress in that regard.
Right, but that issue that when one creates the Tobago public service or teaching service, it limits the opportunities for national promotion and national advancement. Has that been addressed as far as or is that no longer a concern? Is it that Tobago, rising in Tobago and going off into the sunset is what we are aspiring to? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, I think, you know, right now we do have the aspirations where persons can go, but there are a number of persons who, you know, actually want to stay at home. So I am thinking that, you know, from what I've been hearing, the feeling is that people just would like to stay in Tobago and have the opportunity to advance and progress through here.
I see.
I
May
think
I
with the
say something
addition
on that?
of some additional divisions gives you the option of giving more persons the opportunity to grow. Yes, Dr. James. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not taking over from the moderator.
No, I am trying to be obedient here.
No, not you.
I'm just asking if I may comment on that issue.
Oh, you can, Dr. James.
Right.
Go right ahead.
Well, at least two things. One is that Tobago has a division of the Teaching Service Commission and a division of the Public Service Commission. It doesn't have autonomy. These things are still subsumed under the two different commissions. And by the way, the Police Service Commission is exempted from that. You know, we do have that as well. But Tobago doesn't have autonomy in the sense of having control over each of those divisions vis-a-vis the overall bodies. So I am suggesting that if even though Denise is happy with that, we don't have the kind of autonomy that we ought to have with respect to those two commissions. That's one. The second thing I want to say here is that arrangements can be made for the kinds of concerns that Deborah was talking about. That is to say, upward movement, upward mobility. And those are matters, to my mind, that are best taken care of in a model of government that says that we have a federal structure and we can have two island governments and we have movements in respect of promotions and so on being accessible, right? Being accessible as a result of our having an overall structure, but we don't have it in the bill.
I see.
Yeah, Deborah, could I say something here?
No.
In terms of with what you said, you know, there's this division of the Public Service Commission, which is two persons resident in Tobago. A similar thing with the Teaching Service Commission. So Denise, I am not too sure that there's any Tobago public service under that arrangement. Because the question here is that in the bill in 2018, which went to the Joint Select Committee, there was a clear provision about a Tobago Service Commission and a Tobago Civil Service. That is changed now to having two people on the Public Service Commission called a Tobago Division who are resident in Tobago. The question is that the THA has historically been employing most people on contract. So they are not public officers in the first place. And there are many cases now littering both the Industrial Court and the High Court with those contract officers, contract employees, in fact, going as workers to the Industrial Court or going to the High Court. What is a division of a service commission? It has never existed in our constitutional arrangement. And as I said earlier, Winford, the issue of federal government was recommended by the Dumas, the GIF, the Prince teams in the past, and in the 2011 White Green Paper.
Right.
But the 2018 bill talks about a Tobago Island government, but no Trinidad Island government. And neither does this current bill as amended by the GSE. So there is
it's all been rejected.
There's no thinking about federal arrangement.
No.
And how does this notion of a division of a commission made up of two people living in Tobago, how does that work?
It doesn't confer autonomy on the island. That's the first thing.
Certainly doesn't.
Right.
Let me say that I saw a question from the public, but I didn't get the full thing. So if that person can put it again, why was the miles removed from something? I would gladly accommodate that question.
Must
if I
speak
speak.
from the definition of the borders.
All right.
It
So
says from
That's
the
nautical
original
miles.
12.
Not 12.
Okay, so does
It says
anybody
from
want
the
to
original 12.
Why was it removed?
see out to the yes?
Well, we
So,
don't know. We don't have the explanations, and I'm not so sure they are forthcoming.
so do we want to even
Well,
consider the
what I
implications?
would understand, Deborah, to be the problem, to be the issue there is that in some of the documents coming out in the past, there have been references to baseline points and miles out and so on. And in the THA Act, it speaks about 6 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, does Tobago have economic zone according to the law of the sea arrangements? And as part of an archipelagic state, which is Trinidad and Tobago, it does not. So I imagine that what the GSC said is, well, we can't recognize any economic zone for Tobago in the sea based on the law of the sea arrangements.
Well,
So
we don't know what they're saying. We know what they're doing.
So they have
And what
limited it to the internal waters of Tobago, whatever
what they're
that
doing is to ignore the external waters of Tobago, in which lies wealth. When we speak of the blue economy, well, there's a lot of blue economy to be developed once we determine what the boundaries are. And there are international guidelines. The international guideline recognizes equidistance as a criterion, you know, equidistance between the two islands, a line, an international line, well, that is, of course, sanctioned by international best practices and so on. So that is not there. And I want to just remind people that the 2016 bill, Orville London's bill, you might wish to call it, mentioned an 11-mile radius from the baseline. The current House of Assembly says 6, but the JSC has rejected both because it's only concerned about the inland and the internal waters of Tobago. But you know,
I suspect that until that issue is confronted and dealt with, reading Tobago, I get the impression it is the one most important issue for many Tobagonians. And until it's dealt with, we would have some turbulence. But I see Ricardo with his hand up, and I want to hear anxiously. Ricardo, could you give us your contribution?
Yeah, good night, everyone. Good night, Deborah. Good night, Mr. James, and everyone else that is on this tonight. Well, you know, some of the issues that I was looking to raise have already been touched on already. And one of the crucial things was the definition of Tobago, because I recall a threat was made to Mr. Keith Rowley when the PP had suggested, when the PP bill had came, that he was threatening not to come back to Tobago unless that the something with the mileage where Tobago is concerned was addressed. I think I recall something about that, you know, and that was one of the critical areas for me. And I think what I'm looking forward for is a more federal system of government. The Westminster system is outdated, it's poor, it's outlived its usefulness. It no longer makes sense in a modern world now with the kind of things. And I think the problem is the problem really is what they're having is where the economic, some of the economic wealth is in the Tobago waters, natural gas and oil. That's one of the major things I believe that is preventing things from going forward.
Thank
you. Yeah.
I don't think they will ever be able to get that out of our heads. An idea once inside our heads like that, it's difficult to get it out. And I don't know why any group of persons planning Tobago's future would try to disregard it. Isn't the approach really to bring it out and let us discuss it to arrive at some acceptable solution? Because I remember that when Fred spoke about the Orville London bill was being discussed, there was a very telling meeting in which the present Minister of National Security, Sir Fitzgerald Hines, and I remember him, there were some others, but there was a difference of opinion as to as my friend Ricardo says, as to the mileage. I like that word. There's a difference of opinion as to the mileage, how much it should be, etc. But there was agreement that there ought to be a mileage and there ought to be some sort of line. So
I thought I heard something with 100 miles. And also one of my major things I would like to see and which we have to really look at is the population growth in Tobago. We really need it because the numbers in Tobago is too small for the kind of economic transformation we want. So we have to do things that would grow the population. We need at least another 75,000 right now that would be able to sustain businesses, expand them, and open new ones. That's one of the critical things we should be looking at right now. How do we transform Tobago to allow that to happen and so that businesses would survive and new businesses could open and thrive and so on?
Hold on, Ricardo. Do any members of the panel, or just a minute, I see on Facebook comment, they'd come first. Could you put up that comment, please, host? You're going too fast to me. Did anybody see it? Any of the panelists saw it?
No, I didn't see any comment there. I saw something at the top. It was not coming.
But the question for you all, don't we, is the trite, as we say in law, Mr. Weather, trite knowledge that the economic aspect of our development should lead the discussion and lead the thrust of this new bill? Isn't that to be uppermost? How could we draft a bill that would give Tobago the momentum to rise and to, just as I had to quote Ricardo again, and to create systems whereby Tobago could thrive economically? Am I right?
It's one of the pillars, Deborah.
But
it's one of the pillars. Why. Hello?
All right.
That is why.
All right, Dr. James, I'll hear you next. Go ahead, Clyde.
Yeah, that is why I read from the initial part of the bill, which seeks to amend the early parts of the Constitution, and it speaks of recognizing the right of the people of Tobago to determine in Tobago their political status to freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. How do you pursue your economic development in Tobago if all the resources are not available to Tobago? So that's the question.
All right.
And how do you pursue your political development if what you do has to be subject to a national parliament that is not part of a federal arrangement?
All right, Dr. James, you want to come in there?
So therefore, by not putting in the boundaries, you are denying Tobago its contribution to the national treasury, quite clearly so. And therefore, what you're doing is to deepen Tobago's dependence on something called Trinidad, mixed up as Trinidad and Tobago. You're deepening our dependence on a handout from the Ministry of Finance in the form of 6.8%, as you will see a little later. You know, right now where the companies are drilling, they are drilling within Tobago's waters if you use the international definition. So I'm just saying there's some blue economics that have to be worked out. But for me, the main thing is this. What legitimizes the views of a joint select committee over widespread consultation that Orville London claimed that he had in 2016?
Good
so that
question.
you had those views.
Let's Dr. Solafat could answer that. But before you go there, Dr. James and Clyde, bear in mind there's a question. Why did they reject the federal system proposal? They want to know why. I mean, I don't think we know why, but it is leading us to discuss the issue. So bear it in mind after Dr. Surafat makes a contribution.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think it was an apparent consultation. I think we all knew that those consultations happened, and Over London included Ho Choi Charles, and also had an invitation to the TOP at the time to join in the consultations that were happening. Additionally, the PNM in Tobago, the Tobago Council, actually moved a motion in support of the final document that was supposed to go to Trinidad. And that final document was also debated in the House before it was taken and sent to Trinidad for further review by the Joint Select Committee. It was sent to Cabinet, and it was then sent to the Joint Select Committee. So, you know, these consultations, you know, they happened. And I mean, they happened across the length and breadth of Tobago. And it was not just the PNM view, because like I said, other parties were invited to be a part of that collaboration. And Ho Choi Charles was very present alongside Over London within that whole consultative process. Subsequent to that, you had, I think, Kelvin Charles and Ho Choi Charles again were there following up on some of the issues. So I'm really not sure, you know, how we've gone from what went down to Trinidad to where we are today. Certainly you would expect that, you know, you would have additions to what you had before and not things that would be taken away. I go back again that to state that our tourism product would be in jeopardy should we not have control in some measure of transportation. We're talking about driving the economy. That new airport, if handled well, could be a driver of Tobago's economy, but it's nowhere on the list for us to, you know, be part of the administration of that project. So that is another source that we would have, that is jeopardized to us. And, you know, once you do that, again, it affects the tourism product and the expansion of our products for the offering in the tourism sector.
All right, so it seems as though the list of dissatisfaction about the bills, the list is piling up. We have several, and so far we only had one little positive feature that we don't even know if it's really positive. But there was this question.
I'm sure.
You are
I have
sure
a question.
That it is not.
I have a question. Has anyone looked at this? It says we are responsible for public utilities except the Met Office. What does that mean?
May
Are we
I
going to
say
have
this, Denise, I thought we would have had an opportunity to reply
WASA?
to what you said.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, you said a mouthful there, and I thought Deborah was saying to us we should comment on what you said.
I'm sorry.
And you were raising a very important point, but I don't want to defy the chair, so I'm waiting to be.
I was really, remember we have a question from the public, which I want to make sure we deal with and give the people who are making their questions their full concession tonight. They are in control.
Okay.
So one of that question is, why was the federal system rejected? Proposal for the federal system. You may not be able to answer why, but I would want us to consider whether that proposal ought or ought not to have been given some greater play in the document.
I think it's a great suggestion to have a federal structure. It's available elsewhere in the world where it is prosecuted with great success, but I can't read the minds of the JSC. What I can comment on is that absolutely far more Tobagonians would love a system where you have two states that over which there is a federal government. I don't know, but for me, when Denise was talking, I was thinking, what legitimizes the JSC's views over the the views of many Tobagonians who were consulted. And Denise, I am not questioning the veracity of the consultation. I know it took place. What I am questioning is how do we come to a point where you say that a few members of the JSC, mostly Trinidadians, by the way, are saying to us that when we diss that idea, that is the superior way to go. I don't think they have legitimacy here. It is the consultation process that produced views from a wide cross-section of Tobago, and that is more legitimate than these proposals from the JSC.
Well, at some point in time, we'll come to the question, what can we do about it? A member of the public, the viewers, is asking, would we still have 2 seats in the national parliament? Has anybody checked for that?
That has not been removed.
That hasn't changed. That
hasn't
hasn't changed.
So I think I saw
and that is connected to the question of why no federal arrangement.
Exactly.
You see, with the current arrangement, for the overall federal arrangement will look like this. There's a national government, and there's a Tobago government, island government, and a Trinidad island government. But the bill in 2018, and as dealt with by the JSC, does not include a Trinidad island government.
No.
Take our current arrangement. We have 41 seats, 2 in Tobago. So you take out those 2 seats, you have 39 seats in Trinidad. And what is the outcome of elections over the last few electoral cycles in Trinidad? Somebody gets 19 or 20 or somewhere thereabouts.
Right.
So that largely Tobago plays a big part in who holds the parliament.
That's correct.
So for them to have a federal structure, that will not allow them to have Tobago to have that say.
Yeah, it's going to weaken their hold.
And I think that is what is largely behind the rejection of a federal notion.
Right. But that's speculation on our part. We've got to submit our questions to these guys, but we don't have that opportunity, do we?
But don't we have a consultation coming up sometime soon?
Yes, on Friday and Saturday, I believe you can apply for an appointment, and you will be given an audience to express yourself.
But I don't think you
ask
are
further
going to be
questions.
questioning. I don't think it's a questioning of the members of the JSC. It's a presentation of your views, but I don't think it's a questioning.
Well, you know, I've looked at Dr. James has written certain things, and I'd certainly like to raise, and it seems as though we are in agreement with him on certain of the issues he raised. Of course, he was saying that the bill is a carryover of the fundamental flaws of the THA Act. And from what Dr. Denise is also saying, and you, Dr. James, it seems to even retrogress. It has taken some of what had been in the THA Act.
Yes.
And we have gone backwards.
Yes,
so
I think so.
Carry over the flaws. It seems to have taken out the positive features.
And in fact, the 5th schedule of the proposed bill from the Albany London Time actually suggested that the areas for responsibility be defined for Trinidad, and all other areas would just be assumed to be under the Tobago administration. So this is actually done in the reverse, where you define Tobago and you say, you know, the rest Trinidad will take care of. But in the Over London submission, it was that you will define areas, the small areas that Trinidad will be responsible for, and all the rest would belong to Tobago.
Yes, very, very, very interesting. Thank you. I'm not hearing Shirley Cook. Is she still on? Shirley? All right, doesn't seem so. I'm trying to get... Oh, so let's hear you, Shirley. I know you don't stay quiet. Come on.
Well, I'm enjoying the discussions tonight. And what is important, because it is key here for the Tobagonian to understand what they're getting into. And that is my position from the beginning, is to make sure that whatever we say, the Tobagonian understands what this bill means for them. And you have clearly demonstrated some points. And one of the things that should stand out to the Tobagonian mind is that political autonomy means nothing if you do not have financial autonomy. And by restricting the jurisdiction, the area in which you are going to be in charge of, you have technically limited the ability for you to be financially independent. Basically, Tobago is landlocked under this bill. And that is what I want the average Tobagonian to understand. I want them to also understand that this bill really put us back from where the THA bill is, as you indicated. So those things have to be clear to the population. I want Dr. Denise to address one of the key things, in my opinion, with the unicameral legislature. And how do you think that factors into a situation where you do not have a greater participatory governance in the system?
Dr. Denise, I have a
Yes.
let me let you all ponder over the next question from a member, and it's what can Tobagonians do to reject the bill? So, guys, you have your question all cut out there for you. Go ahead, Dr. Denise.
You know, I don't think the issue is so much a unicameral system, because many parliaments across the world are actually grappling with whether, you know, they should remain bicameral or become unicameral. So I think the issue, though, is the number of persons we have seated there to contribute to meaningful debates on creating laws. And secondly, how these persons may be chosen to sit within that chamber. So I think that is the real issue in terms of the numbers. Do we have meaningful numbers in terms of, I believe it's 15 and 15, it's supposed to be 15 plus
15 and 10.
5 plus
15 and
15
10,
and 10,
25.
right, 25.
Yeah.
Is that a meaningful number of
Well,
persons,
may I
of
just come in here,
both,
Denise,
of
a little
both
bit?
you know, representatives, and also, you know, you expect a mixture of opposition and ruling party, but in addition, they are sort of type of what you call senators or whatever that you bring to the table, so you have enough persons who can contribute to a meaningful debate on making Tobago's laws.
Just hold
You
a
see,
minute.
one of the...
Doctor, the political leader has his hands up, and I need to bow down and give the political leader, whoever he or she is, an opportunity to contribute. Yes, sir.
The political leader, okay.
Hi, a pleasant good night to the head table. I'm political leader Nicosi Phillips, to Unity of the People. Thank you very much for giving way. So far, I've listened to the discussion in the beginning there, because I started to go to and dissect the bill from last night. One of the errors that I would have saw, especially there in the bill, is that they talked about the committee proposes the unicameral Tobago legislature with 26 members empowered to make laws referred to as the Tobago Act for peace, order, and good government of Tobago. But when you do the maths, 15 members elected by the assemblymen, 10 councillors appointed by, 5 by the advice of the premier, 3 of the advice of the minority leader, and 2 by the president, which is not 26 members, that's 25. So I'm thinking, where is the other?
The presiding officer.
Presiding officer
makes 26.
Okay, but they didn't make that clear inside here.
Well, I don't know if they made it clear, but I read it that way.
Yeah, okay, because I didn't get that properly. Honestly, everything that you all would have touched tonight is exactly what I would have dissected in the bill. I have some papers here with everything that you all touched on. I actually have it here. And especially with the budget in clause 22, we talk about the 6.8%. I think that was always there, but we never really got it. So how are we supposed then now? Who is to say that we will receive it even though this bill is supposed to be passed?
No, if it's specified in the Constitution, then it has to be obeyed.
Right, but if
the question is not simply it being there, but how do you change it over time? And the way you change it according to the bill is to have a special majority. In other words, Parliament has to decide it, not Tobago.
Nice. Yes, that's what I was thinking as well. One last thing before I go back to silence. In paragraph 4 of the financial provisions, part 5, clauses 22 to 30. Why do we need the Minister of Finance to approve the borrowing? And
exactly.
Why not deal directly with central government? And the next question is, what and would and do we still have to wait on Tobago allocation from the government, even though we do a bill, right? And that's it for now until I dissect more, and I will listen to the contribution, and so far it's going very good. Thank you so much.
Leader, thank you very much. Somebody who asks about rejecting this bill, I see Dr. James writing saying actually Tobago should reject this messy and badly designed bill as just another effort to frustrate Tobago's pursuit of development by creating a representative government model. Now we know Dr. James is very, very, very determined on this issue of representing.
That Dr. James is actually Vanus James, right?
Yeah, no, not too many earlier, man.
Well, we collaborate.
Dr. Vanus.
I know that the question is that I know that they have put out this survey driven by the Survey Monkey, and perhaps it is a tool that persons can use to express their views to go back to Parliament. It is driven, hosted by Parliament. And perhaps that is something, I think it has been widely shared. You can actually answer the questions on your smartphone. And I know that this discussion was supposed to be able to assist persons, to be able to decipher the information at hand and make a decision as to whether to agree to the various clauses within there.
Thank you.
Let me just go back, Deborah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, but I just want to...
Could I just make a point here in response to what Denise just said?
Clyde, before don't want to lose this, I want to challenge the organizers to make sure not only to say Survey Monkey, but to explain to people, man in the street, how we can use Survey Monkey to accomplish what they want to happen with the bill. Who want to reject it, who want to say it's great, I guess they must understand how to use the tool. So I'm challenging them to make sure it's put to our disposal. Fine? So we have Dr. James Winford, that is, and Clyde jockeying for position to speak. Doc, are you gonna give the guests?
I always give way to my guests.
Are we gonna draw straws?
Yeah,
I always give way to my guests. So go ahead, Clyde.
Yeah, just a small point on the survey itself. Survey Monkey is just the tool they're using. But the survey is asking members of the public to go clause by clause through the bill and say, do you agree with this one or disagree with that one? No, first of all, that means the members of the public have to study every clause of the bill in order to really present a proper opinion on the bill. And when you go through that, what they will do is add up how many for and how many against this clause or that clause is not I think the issue of whether you can reject the bill, that is a political issue that the people of Tobago have to organize themselves to address the bill as a whole.
But I think the challenge becomes whether some people would answer it and others don't, and whether that could be taken as, okay, well, we have a subset of persons who are for it.
Well, it's only one, that is only one means of doing it. There must be other ways. But that's not gospel, that's only one way. I wanted Deborah to go back to a point Denise was making about the insufficiency of numbers to allow real oversight over the executive. And she was talking about 15 and 10, 25, and you don't have enough non-executive members. She didn't put it that way, but I believe that's where she was going.
Yes.
Enough non-executive members to exercise oversight. Now, that's an important point because you see, we need to change our sense of representative government. But there is a clause in the new bill that says that the chief secretary, well, they now call him the premier. The premier can develop a cabinet or the executive council that is larger than the elected people. So if he decides, and he can decide, that he wants a big executive council, well, that would further reduce the number of people, non-executive I trust, who can exercise oversight over what he does. So that we don't have enough people in the House. 25 is not going to be enough in circumstances where the chief secretary or the premier already can create an overlarge executive. So that's another point. You see, one of the points, Deborah, in relation to the survey monkey, let me just finish this point, please, is that people are looking to us, or people like ourselves, to be informed about how to handle the survey monkey. They are waiting for information from people of us who try to simplify or explain what the bills say. So this is an important forum to inform people so that when they go to a survey monkey, they have ideas perhaps that are better understood than they would have been if we did not have a forum like this.
Yes, because one of the things as Clyde spoke, I was thinking that we just school people as to the clauses you go in there to attack.
Right.
When you vote in the states, there are 30,000 things on the ballot, but the activists tell you go in there and focus on number 2, number 5, number 7. You're not even looking at the others, and you just off accordingly. So, you know, you are right that people like you, people like me, have to be the kind of drivers and explaining.
That's correct, Deborah.
Yes.
Very correct. And we mustn't apologize for it.
No, I haven't. I wish I had more time to really be more frontal, but I don't want us to apologize at all.
Right.
All right. So where do we go at this point? If you look at the Constitution part of the bill, or the Constitution bill, we talk about lawmaking powers. We talk about the responsibilities. We talk about what is the definition of Tobago. What about the financing arrangement, or the political leader referred to the 6.8%? Just a minute. Yes, the 6.8%.
Right.
What are our views on that? Dr. James, I know you made that point about the Constitution locking it in, and then you want to change it, you have to go to Parliament. Political leaders sounded as though she thought that was good. I am not sure that was the perspective from which you were coming. So perhaps you can take that quickly.
Okay, well, let me see if I can be quick about this. And the first thing to say is that the Dispute Resolution Commission that was invoked by Ho Charles when he was in charge, our first chief secretary, as you know, and they went to court, and because of what the act says, the commission was invoked, and there was a range of rates starting at the bottom one, 4.03, and ending at 6.9. No government has gone beyond 4.03. Okay, but the commission was informed by the work of Dr. Vanus James in this case, who said that you have to divide the wealth of the country by the number of citizens in the country, and you will get a percentage. And in the case of Tobago, at the time when that was drafted, it was, I think it's about 3 point something percent. And that allowed the determination of the lower rate here, 4.03. The population may have gone up now, and Tobago's share is probably about 5% as estimated. So the point is, you don't have the formula in the law. What you have is a rate, and a rate that is fixable and changeable by the parliament. In other words, Tobago will not be financially autonomous if the parliament has to intervene through special majorities to give it a rate when the time comes.
The question would be out there, so what we want to happen, what is the ideal for us? Bearing in mind, a question came earlier about the Fiscal Commission.
Fiscal Review Commission, yes.
Somebody was saying they didn't like the composition at all.
No.
So tell us what you think. Clyde, it's for you too. Dr. Denise, it's for you. Perhaps we should get Clyde on that and then Dr. Denise.
On
Okay.
Commission, the Fiscal Review Commission is composed in a way that you have the majority of persons on it being literally from the central government. Let me put it that way. So
it's 3 versus 2.
Yeah, so
3 from the cabinet
majority,
and 2 from the executive council.
Right.
I'm just
so
jogging your memory here.
Yeah, so the majority is from the central government.
Yes.
So when it comes to decision making, how is that going to turn out?
And therefore there is no autonomy. That's
Yes.
the point I've been making. There's no autonomy.
It's a non-commission.
Yes.
And I believe previously the Dispute Resolution Commission was not made up of persons from here. You had some sort of independent body
Yes.
or influence
Yes.
in that arrangement. And I
With
think
judicial
that
skill.
would really bring a level of transparency to the table that will be needed if you had really a conflict that you had to resolve.
Yeah, but nowhere in the world where sensible representative government is concerned do you put the litigants, the people who are quarreling between themselves, on the committee itself. You need to have independent-minded professionals. But this particular bill gives us a mediation committee that is comprised in such a way that the litigants are the ones who trigger the dispute, right? And they are the ones who solve it, with the cabinet having a majority of 1. I mean, that's crazy in my judgment. I don't wish to cast any aspersions on anybody's intelligence, but that's crazy. So you don't have the autonomy that we are looking for before we move off the point, Deborah. And it happens in respect of the Fiscal Review Commission as well. But Deborah was asking a question earlier, well, how do we fix the money part of it? Well, we keep a formula, or we develop a formula for amendment in the Constitution, which says that based on our share of the citizenry, we participate in that percentage of wealth, right? We come up with the wealth of the country and we divide up that wealth into the number of persons, each person having the same share. And we will find that Tobago's share will rise from 4.03 to 5%. But we also know that if we have the boundaries established, then there is wealth in Tobago's waters, which are now claimed by the government of Trinidad and Tobago without anything specially assigned to Tobago. But if you are going to have autonomy talks that we are having now, you had better come up with a way of deciding how Tobago can contribute. And one of the ways, quite clearly, is the exploration of its resources. It is handling its wealth by a formula which has not yet been determined, because everything goes to the central government. And so those 2 mechanisms I can provide at this point. I'm sure there are others. and economists might be called in to specify what the blue economics is going to look like, given the expectation that there be this equidistant line between the two islands from of course, the baselines of each island. But they have rejected that, as you see.
Well, they have not included it. I don't.
No, there was a line before, you know, Deborah. It's just that we were not happy with the 6 miles.
Yeah, what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying.
But I think 11 or 12 was submitted as part of the last bill,
committee, the 11.
And so that even that was removed.
Are we giving them
enough? We want equidistance, Deborah. Equidistance.
Are we giving them the power to reject anything? So I'm saying they have not included it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I bow to that logic.
They are not empowered to reject what the people of Tobago.
But they have rejected what was there before. Some of the clauses that in the current bill have been rejected.
Well, that's what somebody's saying, that many of the most of the critical clauses are not in the draft.
In the survey.
So there are no boundaries anymore, no external boundaries. It's all gone. There used to be 6 miles, and but there is 6 miles right now.
That's right, but that 6 miles isn't even.
And they are aware of it.
Observed.
And that is why I keep saying, Deborah, that the question of legitimacy of the sources of the views that will carry arises here. Is it the people of Tobago, or is it the few members of the JSC? You know on which side I will come down.
Yes.
No JSC comprised of Trinidadians will determine my future.
So somebody is asking here, so what should the bill look like?
Well, very good question. And that brings us to what autonomy is really ought to be about. And the short answer to that is that it should be a Bill of Rights. A Bill of Rights. And one of the rights is the right to your maritime resources. Yeah. Vanus James came up with 6 rights, and I believe he's even expanding on those rights. But when we have those rights, we fix our own business around those rights. Nobody telling us what to do. We decide what kind of government we want in the island. We're not waiting for Parliament to tell us that this ought to be the case. We're not waiting for Cabinet to tell us this ought to be the case. So I start off with the basic observation that autonomy consists in our having a Bill of Rights. How many rights there are going to be, we can work that out. But certainly, we must have those rights.
Let me just give people an insight into what Vanna's suggestion constitute this Bill of Rights.
Oh, you have them there? Good, nice.
Yeah. The right to explicitly define appropriate boundaries of Tobago. I carry the whole thing, I'm just giving you a basic. The right of the people to petition and oversee their government without fear of political victimization.
Correct.
The right of people to design and establish a democratic government of their choice, including all rules governing the conduct of the representatives of the people. The right of the people of Tobago to develop the Tobago economy in the interest of the island. The right of the people to agree to any prescribed powers of the government of Trinidad and Tobago and to all reserved unprescribed powers.
That's the right of concurrence, yes.
The right of the people to concurrence. Now, I know they're going to say Vanna's mad with this here, and you to Dr. James.
Well, they may say so, but we can argue the point.
You'll argue that you're not mad. Clyde,
I would like to say,
that, but we can adduce evidence in support of what we are saying.
I would like to say that whilst those may be good ideas, we cannot ignore the fact that thousands of Tobagonians attended consultations over a number of years, and a final bill was signed off by the people of Tobago, okay, and supported and sent to Trinidad. Why couldn't that be the basis? So it means that we have to start the process all over again.
No. We can lead off from 2016. There are many good things there as we have discussed. But time has passed, understandings have improved, there are better ideas. We're not rejecting all the past, We're just saying, pay attention to the fact that there are new ideas, new thoughts, and there are younger people who are coming up who have very, very sharp ideas with respect to how we refine this thing. But it doesn't lie in what is in front of us, which is clearly a piece of paper that rejects all the autonomy gains, rolls them back in a way that is intolerable.
So it seems as though Tobago has to be organized to speak with a common voice.
That's correct.
And that's the point I was making, Deborah, about the survey.
Mm-hmm.
And if the comment that the person made about critical aspects of the bill are not even included in the survey, how do people's views really get reflected by participating in that survey?
Well, the survey asked for additional, if you wanted to make additional representation for what you're not happy with or what you're happy with, that you can submit in addition to that. It does make availability
I am
for
one
that.
of the few individuals from Trinidad, if any more were there, who submitted anything to the JSC, and they never even acknowledged receipt of my submission. I heard the Prime Minister call my name in a long list of who submitted. But what I said to them was they never asked me to come and elaborate. They never
Well,
even
maybe you wrote it
acknowledged my
so well.
That's not the point the man is making. But a different point all entirely.
And if Reggie Dumas had a committee that went all over Tobago, produced a report, Gift had a team, Prince had a team, there were and two other teams after that before the 2016. How then does this group of people, and let's be frank, this is PNM and UNC sitting down in the JSC deciding what to do about Tobago. And that goes back to my point about
Be careful
why they
to
rejected.
say. Be careful to say that the government has a built-in majority there.
Well, they do, but the fact is, who makes up that committee is the government and the opposition.
That's correct.
And they are both Trinidad in that sense.
That
so
is
that
a critical point.
When you come now to understand, as somebody asked the question, why did they reject the federal notion? And you go back to the electoral arrangements for the country as they exist. Who has a vested interest in maintaining that? Is both of them.
You know, but I want to go back to what the chair has been asking us, if she will permit. She's saying, what do we do about it? And I think a fellow called Ryan Allard asked that question. What do we do about it? We want to bring the opposition 6 and the government 6, the House of the PNM 6, the PDP 6 together. We want to have them united around this bill, but it appears that that will not happen because the Tobago PNM has a habit of agreeing with anything the Trinidad PNM wants, says, and does. So the question is, it will have to be up to the opposition to rouse the spirits of the population around the, well, I don't want to use language that is too rough, so I will have to pause a little bit. We want a situation in which people understand that this cannot avail them in anything at all. It's not going to advance their lives, right? And if the PNM and the PDP cannot coexist, then we have to go back to the polls. And if we have to go back to the polls, it seems to me that there has to be some mechanism of the two parties coming together and saying, let us form the House. One idea that I have heard that I think makes sense is that the PDP should give the PNM the executive. You take it, all right? But there will be no opposition in the House. Give us the deputy chief, that is PDP's talking now. You take the chief secretary and you form the government, right? We will take the chief, the deputy chief or deputy premier or whatever the case may be. We will take that, and we don't even have to have a portfolio. It will soon be revealed. If you form the House in that way, it soon be revealed that you cannot really run the government properly. Yeah, because there's no opposition anymore. It's one body. And therefore, the House, having come together, can dissolve itself, I think, in the shortest possible time. And then we go back to the polls. And you know, of course, that Dr. Rawi got 2 bills passed in the parliament prior to the laying of the JSC bill. Maybe they will go to the election with those 15 seats rather than 12. And I'm only saying that because right now the cabinet is in charge. So if the 2 groups form a government with no opposition, they will quickly come to the view that they can't really go forward with Tobago's governance. And therefore they will have to dissolve themselves, call a new election. And let's see where it goes from there.
Well, I have to say, I am very disappointed that 6 people on one side and 6 on the other side in Tobago could not find a way to come together in the interests of Tobago and work out some arrangement. I really,
Yeah.
It has.
Well, politics stands in the way, not so?
Yeah, but you know, I really thought we could have risen above it, but at this juncture, I see Shirley Cook has a hand up, but let me just say to Channel 5, you have been posting a question, but it cuts off to the end, so I'm not getting the true, I don't know if that's the host or if it's you in writing the question, I'm not getting the true extent of your question. So could you send it again, the whole thing, make sure it stays on the screen? Okay, Ms. Shirley, and I see a couple women on the platform, Rhonda Q, Lolita Wheeler, Marilyn Melville. Come on, we need to hear you. So send your question or raise your hand as Shirley's doing. Shirley, go ahead.
Yes, good night again. Based on what Dr. James just said, I'm thinking was because there's so many things in this bill that is vexing and is just so frustrating to know that the Joint Select Committee sat all this time and this is what they came up with. That is it by design? Is this an intention to have exactly what Dr. James says? So it forces us to go back to the polls. So there is the kind of political outcome that would be favored for one side. We have to look at it in that context. But at the same time, we must find as Tobagonians a way out of this. And one of the things is that even as we all put our voices together and put forward our opinion, who is to say that the Joint Select Committee is even going to accept it? Because they have not accepted what a serious consultation in Tobago has brought forward to them. So
is their acceptance the critical point here?
Excuse me?
Is their acceptance of what Tobago wants the critical thing here?
It definitely does not seem like it, because
but it shouldn't be that way. That's the point.
Right.
It
so
should,
is this something that needs to be determined by a Joint Select Committee then?
That's a better question. I like that question.
They have clearly rejected the voice of Tobagonians in this bill. So
right. And that is why I was saying up front, let us form a Bill of Rights. And then when that is formed, we can now, when the elections are called and so on, set about determining all the rules. And of course, we will learn as we go along, right? But let's be clear on what our rights are.
That's
right.
Well,
and we must dictate to them what our rights are.
Yes, and that
they don't
should
seem
not,
to know.
Our rights should be enshrined, and our structure of governance should be determined by us. So whenever we want to change that, it is easier for us to change than if we have to rely on central government with 3/4 in the parliament and and 2/3 in the Senate.
We
You
will
know,
fix
so
that up.
Tobagonians have to understand, I truly believe that this is either by design or this has to be an ulterior motive for the future, because I cannot see for the life of me. It is vexatious for me as a Tobagonian for us intelligent people who have struggled for 130 something years to try to find our way, to be still fighting for some basic rights. And we have to be agitated to the point where we have to stand up in not just through medias like this, but we have to physically face the fire, if you will, for lack of a better word, and show our disgust. We must face the persons who are determining this kind of future for us, to say we are not going to take it anymore, not to be radical, but we have to find some way
Well,
to make
we
our
may have
point
to become
across.
radical,
Well, someone
because
is
it's not coming
asking,
in the normal way.
Dr. James, I don't know if we want to entertain this question now, seeing the trajectory we are going on. What
You mean?
what kind of demand can Tobago make that would be acceptable to Trinidad? No, it
That is the conundrum that we face. We have a prime minister that is Tobagonian. He has been there for over 5 years now in the seat of government, right? What Tobago is asking for has long been on the table, although he has spoken in such a way as to suggest he did not know what Tobago really wanted. Even when he was laying the bill in 2018, he was not quite sure what Tobago wanted. And although a bill had come out in 2016, and when he met with the House of Assembly, you remember, the House of Assembly invited him to the chamber. Kelvin Charles was the chief secretary at the time. And he publicly said, what does Tobago want? And Tobago had already told him what Tobago wanted. So the problem we face here is that we have somebody who ought to know better, who is not behaving in the interest of Tobago, but in the interest of the party. Somebody, I think Clyde was joining me in making the point that in order to hold on to power in this country, the PNM has to have Tobago. But if you give Tobago its autonomy, the PNM will lose support that will make it win national power. And you know, the opposition in Trinidad is working on winning 1 seat, 2 seats along the corridor. When that happens, as apparently it will eventually do, the PNM will lose national power. So Tobago is a linchpin, it's a trump card where PNM is concerned. But that is political speculation, by the way. It is not hard science, it's speculation.
So Clyde, what is you are the Trinidadian, what can we give you that will be acceptable to you, boy?
Well, the point is, Deborah, the years ago when you had that discussion at Works outside Scarborough there, and I raised the point that when you talk about Bill of Rights, the highest right Tobago will have in a relationship with Trinidad is the right to say, I'm leaving. So unless those rights include the right to secede, we're not going to have a solution. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying that I'm calling on Tobago to secede. I'm saying
no, but it must be there.
If you are in a marriage, that marriage cannot be a free union unless both parties can say, well, we're done with it.
Right.
One.
And until we reach that point, then Tobago will say, we want this, we want that, we want the other. And the central government and the national politics going to sit down and say, well, you say what you want, this is what we're telling you you're going to get. And if you don't like it, too bad.
Well, that makes us into a colony, doesn't it, Clyde? That's how colonies behave.
I wanted to ask Dr. Sawyer Fatu in a marriage what she thinks about what you said. So the floor is yours, Gil.
Wow.
Especially where, you know, women are now being highlighted in taking you know, responsibility for more actions wherever they need to. But I believe that, you know, it's important that we seriously consider where we are going, you know, and from the discussion so far, I think persons can tick off from 2 to 17 that, you know, this is not going to work, that they very much disagree with a number of the clauses that have been put in here. You know, perhaps the only thing we can agree on is that Tobago has to have its autonomy. But barring that, you know, we have some significant concerns with all of the clauses that have been discussed, especially in the Constitution Amendment Bill. We haven't even gotten to the second part yet. But, you know, if the first part is so flawed, then, I mean, you know, the second part comes out of it.
But
I think that we do have a serious challenge.
Though we have mentioned
And
some
the
of
question becomes, though, how do we go forward with, you know, as the person on Facebook said, how do you go forward with placing your views in such a way that they know that you're serious and that they could feel that you may be serious?
So it had to be that they didn't think the Orville London submission was serious, because I keep wondering what is the mindset that the JSC adopted to a document submitted by the people of Tobago? Is it is it that they feel it's something to be just thrown aside? To my mind, no respect has been given to the fact that this document has emanated from Tobago. You have gone through how much inputs and discussions and conferences were held.
So they're treating us like
but
a
they've
colony,
also, but they've also disrespected their party, because, like I said, the Tobago Council moved a motion in support of the document, and I think it even went to the national convention, PNM convention, and it was endorsed at that level. And that document is a document that was then sent to Trinidad after the debate in the House of Assembly. So I really don't know what went awry along the way.
Interfere with it.
Sorry? Well, the minority has weight.
It seems so, because if you saying that the PNM approved it at every level and it gets there, is the opposition in the majority on that?
Not at all. You know, one gets the impression, a sneaky feeling, that the government side was instructed to do what it has come up with. The government side on the JSC.
I see. So,
but it's a dangerous speculation, so I will not attach a name to the speculator.
At this point, it really is about putting Tobago first. You know, like I say, you know, cocking your political hat to one side and thinking about the best interests of Tobago. What will we tell our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, you know, if we sat down and just allowed this to happen? You know, I don't know if any of us could hold our heads, you know, high and walk with it if we continue to allow, and I talk about the erosion of what we already had, because we've seen in a number of instances where we had certain things and they have now been removed.
So Sean Big Hutch, are you there? Could we get your views? Joel Green, Dr. Reginald Dumas, we are all seeing you, but we're not hearing you. We would like your contribution. Anybody, hands up or send your question, let's hear you. Marilyn Melville, we want to hear the people speaking. All right, well, there's a question from one of the people. What are your thoughts on the president appointing councillors? I think was the question. Anybody saw it? Anybody thinks it's something that is desirable?
It's not desirable at all. The president, the president has no local standard in Tobago. Tobagonians did not vote for the president and for her to, in fact, appoint two people. In fact, We don't want any councillors in the House, we want all people there to be elected people, elected representatives, not appointed ones, and certainly not appointed by a president whom the population did not vote there. The president is a creature of the PNM, the party in power. We must understand that. And you can't give her...
Just push back with that, I don't think that there's general agreement on that. You
on
think,
what?
Dr. Denise, you think so, Clyde?
I just gave you
On
facts
what?
and giving you an opinion.
The president is a creature of the PNM. Am I quoting you right?
Yes. If you're referring to me, yes, you're quoting me
Yes,
right.
I am.
Yeah, but Deborah, the Constitution makes the party in power, the government, the body in this country who determines who the president is.
Yes.
That's the arrangement.
Yes,
They have a majority in the parliament.
Right.
The fact that she's appointed by the PNM makes her as instrument of the PNM after she's appointed.
And I didn't say she was an instrument of the PNM.
No, you
What
didn't say
do
that.
you want to say?
I said she was a creature of the PNM.
Creature.
I also made the point that Tobago did not participate in her appointment or election as president. But she's now being asked or being required to, in fact, appoint two of the council.
You have two people on two
But I was
seats
about to
in
say
the
that.
parliament who,
Yes.
Sorry?
who make up part of
I was
that
about
majority.
to say that.
To what?
Two
Two
people
people in the parliament from Tobago who make up
but that's
part
not
of
the
that
point I'm
majority.
making. I am saying that the president, whereas you can say Dr. Rowley was elected and all the others, Kamala was elected, you cannot say that of the president, but you are asking the president to put two councillors in the House. That's what
Well,
you're
I think
asking her to do.
I think the problem is why this came about is, again, Denise, something that was taken out of the bill that was sent to the parliament was this question of the people's house.
Yes.
And that is taken
They
out.
took that out
So this
completely.
comes as a substitute for that. And the only way they could conceive in the parliament of a substitute is the way the parliament itself is structured.
Yeah.
So this comes up with a notion of independent councillors in the Tobago government,
We
which
don't
will
know.
be appointed by the president.
We don't know how a president appointed in the way she has been appointed is independent.
Well,
We don't have the answer to that.
to my mind, it would seem then that nobody would be independent because to be appointed.
Everybody's appointed by somebody.
Exactly.
No, appointment is different from election.
Yeah,
if
but
you had an elected president, that would be different from the people directly put you there.
But wait, can you go around electing everybody for every board?
Certainly for the unicameral house.
No,
or
but
even for a bicameral house.
No, but you're talking about the president.
It's been done, It's been done in other countries. We mustn't just look to what we have here.
The power
around the world, the elected person is a more credible person.
I agree, but my point is, Winford, somewhere down the totem pole, people have to be appointed. People on statutory.
But you don't put appointed people over elected people, Deborah. Which is what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, but to me, it depends on the powers that they are given. When you appoint them, you try to appoint people.
Well, it gives you the legitimacy to appoint them in the first place.
When you have a constitution.
I think, guys, we're going off course here.
And the constitution can be changed. It's an important point,
That's a question that was asked, and we're trying to.
Yes. We mustn't run away from the difficult questions. The president of this country has no legitimate authority over assemblymen in the Tobago House of Assembly. None. She certainly should not be trusted to put councillors in the House. On what basis is she going to do that? Tobago people did not put her where she is. She isn't.
You didn't hear Clyde say we had two representatives who were there?
Where? In the JSC?
In the parliament.
In terms of the appointment.
We only have 2 versus 39?
In
Yes, and that's
Senatorial
the point.
College.
When we take away the Tobago 2, you are left with a Trinidad majority that can overturn everything. We cannot be led by the parliament of this country. And that is why we must have our Bill of Rights that clearly makes these statements.
Well, that is very, very far-reaching. You could even be accused when you say we cannot be led by the parliament of this country.
No, we could be led by a federal structure, but we should not be led by a number of people who are elected by Trinidadians to run the affairs of this country. Because we will never get what we want. Or hardly anything that we have wanted. The parliament can stand in our way. And there's a point at which the cabinet is the parliament, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They have a majority in the cabinet and a majority in the parliament. A simple majority I'm talking about. Not the special majorities, except their elected numbers are big enough. You follow?
Xavier has his hands up. Xavier, I'm sorry, I've been just killing listening.
I was just to point that out to you, Deborah.
Yeah?
I was just going to point out Xavier's had his hand up forward.
Yeah, that's all
I
right.
was
No problem.
entranced by what
everyone.
Dr. James is saying and wondering if I'd have to defend him for sedition somewhere.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Yeah.
so Xavier, let's hear you.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on everything that was being said concerning having representatives that are seeking the interest of Tobago and bounced upon an interview with Shampa Kojo on conversation with the candidates from elections 2020, because this was going on since before the general elections, and I just wanted to play the excerpt so you'd hear what our representative had said about this very issue in July 2020.
Plainly, if you're going to define Tobago by 6 miles, then you have to define Trinidad. But we don't just get 6 miles and then everything else is Trinidad. If you're going to define, we need to define Tobago and define what is Trinidad. Also, you don't just get to define Tobago and then the rest is Trinidad. It doesn't work like that. That doesn't put us in an advantageous position. We are a sister island, not a child or a ward of Trinidad, and we want to be treated as a sister. We want parity. We want equal rights, and equal access to all resources. Yeah.
President Biden. Yeah, I just wanted to play out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that.
Perfect. But what
she has changed her mind now. Is that what you're saying?
And that's a member of the JSC.
She is a member of the Joint Select Committee. I mean, I'm flawed.
Yeah, that's why I thought it relevant to play, because she sits on the committee, and this was part of the campaign in 2020 for general election when we had conversations.
And that's less than a year away.
The agenda has changed.
Sir Winford could explain that in all his language. So perhaps you should
instructions have gone out, so you change your mind.
Whoa, Tobago. Dr.
Deborah, I don't know if you would mind this, but to the extent that that still holds anybody's interest, I have compiled at least 4 ways in which, 4 grounds on which there is no autonomy in the second bill, their companion bill.
Dr. Surfat said earlier that if we can't get past number 1, was it you or not?
Yeah. Well, no, the point is it makes the people who want to comment on the bill may be informed. That's the point. If we are going to inform people, it's important to go.
We reaching to there.
But that's supposed to be a conversation for tomorrow, isn't it?
No, but Denise, you yourself were talking about the 5th schedule and the 4th schedule. You forget?
Yes.
You were saying that there was transportation, for example.
Right. So, it's the schedules you want to talk about.
No, but that's part of the
Is that part of that bill?
No, I'm
No, the
trying to remember
schedules are
that
part
now.
of this bill. The
Which one?
schedules are part of bill number 1.
Bill
Yeah.
number 1, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Constitution bill, yes.
But I think some matters here that are part of
Bill
bill number 2.
And the other panelists seem to be saying there's no need for bill number 2.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I would be guided.
Well, no, I don't want to.
No,
Please, let's
I
hear
mean, I think it's important to discuss it in its entirety.
Let's hear you.
Yeah.
I am not going to talk about all of them, and I was just reporting that I have put 4 of them together.
All right, go ahead.
And I don't even remember whether I took them from the first bill or the second bill, but I'm going to read something that I wrote. And I'll say here, the ground is that it gives the central government, that is Trinidad, the right to intervene in the governance of Tobago whenever it deems that a crisis exists that demands that intervention.
Emergency.
That's bill number 1. Yes.
That's bill number 1?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I highlighted that too.
Says emergency.
It's under the 5th schedule. It's as clause number 11 and 12 on the executive powers. Yeah.
So go
It
ahead.
says unless there is an emergency or unforeseen circumstance. And I highlighted it because I was like, who defines what that emergency is or unforeseen circumstance?
It's the cabinet according to the bill. Again, there's no autonomy there for Tobago because the cabinet has its own discretions in that matter. So I don't remember whether I took it from the first or the second bill. There are others, Deborah. Do you wish me to try again?
Just be a little brief because, you know, we're still trying to get our persons that are not on the panel to intervene or to, like how Xavier came in a nice.
I can retreat in the interest of hearing other people.
All right, well, go ahead, and when you need to retreat, I'll tell you. Because so far, I'm not seeing anybody, and I'm trying.
Okay. The bill empowers the central government to dominate the process of determination of the Tobago budget by proposing a minimum budgetary allocation of 6.8%, which may be adjusted upwards by a fiscal review commission dominated by the cabinet, 3 members from the cabinet, 2 from the executive council, and the borrowing arrangements delinked from the economic performance of Tobago and approvable by the Minister of Finance. Again, there is no autonomy here for Tobago. Now, where that came from, is it the first or the second? I don't remember, right?
First.
But I do know that
that's the first.
Yeah?
First.
I do know, to me, that is not important where it comes from, you know, but that it is there.
Yeah.
Right? It is there, and it speaks to a lack of autonomy for Tobago. Again, the cabinet is in charge. People who are responding must know that. Here's another example of the parliament being in charge. Tobago is not in charge.
Let me ask you something. Sorry, you finished?
Well, I have more, but you said people are not raising their hands anymore.
Yeah, let me just ask this. Do you think the issues would be solved? Sometimes when I see the problems we're having, I wonder if the amendment should not just be in terms of paragraph 5, clause 5 of 1. There shall be equality of status between the
exactly.
and the island of Tobago.
Okay.
And all other things shall fall into place. Full stop.
Rather than having it
nothing
as a
else.
preamble.
That's it.
There's a preamble. Is that what you're saying?
That's the only amendment we need. And anything comes up, we point to that clause.
Wow.
We wouldn't be having all this twin and froing. We'll have one paper as they are to be.
Well, we can have that.
So I want to remind us.
We have to be specific over in due course.
I want to remind us of the question that came up from one of our viewers concerning what do we do now?
Yes.
How do we go forward now?
But I attempted to answer that question.
Well, let's
Because,
going wrong
you
with
know, you don't want a situation where we don't, or we have not acted in a way where persons feel compelled to make any changes, and then this goes to the House for debate.
All right, so give us your suggestions, Doc. Give us your suggestion, Clyde. Give us your suggestion, Dr. James. Starting with you, Dr. Angus.
Well, I mean, I know that, you know, in order to get the bill off the ground, I remember with the London regime that there was actually a petition that you got Tobagonians, you know, on a whole to sign, stated that they wanted this bill to go forward. And I think, you know, we have to come up with some action that is meaningful in case, you know, we feel as if we are not being heard by the normal realm of putting forward a position paper.
Mm-hmm.
And Tobagonians have to be called into action.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be called into action to take some decision on what is going forward and have our voices being heard, have our voices heard. You know, I listened to Shamfa Kojo's clip, and I mean, it's very evident that she too was very passionate about the issue. So it's an issue that the average Tobagonian is very passionate about. And, you know, I'm sure we will never get an answer as to what took place between last July 2020 and now when we are presented with this bill as to what really occurred. But perhaps the why is not the issue. The real issue is what are we going to do in terms of going forward?
Good point. Okay, Clyde.
Yeah, the difficulty you face in terms of what you do is the fact that COVID is here and there are all these restrictions, because normally what you would do is meet in large groups and discuss the issue and take decisions about what to do. The absence of being able to do that, even the idea of a petition, how are you going to go house to house in Tobago to do that? Or
Zoom technology.
it's very difficult to bring people together to do anything collectively.
It's amazing at how many people are on social media these days.
The PDP called for people to come to Port of Spain and demonstrate around the Red House. But how you get in there? And the police commissioner will then decide, is that something I will allow? So the question is, in the restrictions that we are in, what is possible? Because what is needed is for Tobago people, in the same way that they did before, to get together and form a consensus on this bill. And you can't do that by just sitting in your own home. People need to interact.
I don't think it's as hopeless as you, because I mean, people
you have to find a way.
Now they respond to the technology. Dr. James, what do you say?
Right. If we wanted to go to Trinidad, that is to say the seat of government, who would go and represent us? It would seem to me that it's got to be the people we elected in the first place. It's got to be the parliamentary representatives, Tobago West, Tobago East, and of course the elected House of Assembly men and women, 12 of them. So we are talking about 12 plus 2, 14. The problem is they are not united. You take the assemblymen, for example, they cannot decide on how to distribute offices in an assembly, an assembly until, of course, new legislation is put in place. We need a united front, but politics gets in the way of that united front. The PNM will not join with the PDP. I think the PDP is more willing, by the way, than the PNM are. They will not join with the PDP to have a united front to face the authorities in Trinidad. So the point is, we've got to have some arrangement that takes away opposition from the new house I'm thinking of, giving the PNM control, executive control of the house, right? With no opposition, and with the PDP being there. And in due course, we will realize that executive government cannot proceed. But having formed the house by
let
giving
me stop you, Doc. Remember, and there's a hand raised. Remember, what we're trying to do is how we go forward. We know
that's what I'm talking about.
Problems that exist of who can.
That is what I'm talking about.
We got the preamble before.
We want a House of Assembly that goes forward with the bill or with the bills. And that can only come now from fresh elections, apparently, because right now, the two parties are not seeing eye to eye. So and that's the point I'm making.
You're saying this ban, we put the bill on the floor straight away and focus on new election so that we can make a better representation on the final bill.
You got me right, Deborah.
All right. Now, the political leaders' hand is up, and I need to remind everybody that we have the continuation, or let us say a second event tomorrow. I think it's same time, same place, Mr. Host, yes. Mr. Allard. All right. Yes. So those who missed it tonight, and all these people I'm seeing, I keep seeing Marilyn Melville, Sean, Big Hutchinson, Lolita Wheeler. I needed to hear these people giving their contribution, but I didn't. So now I go to political leader. Yes, madam.
First of all, I think Mr. James is very right. But we can't really disband the conversation of the Joint Select Committee in regards to the Tobago bill, because we'll just be going back and back. Going forward, I believe that one, we really cannot work together, because if you really look at it, I think we've been playing a lot of political games for the past years. And for me, I don't really listen to what they say, because Shanta will be, you know, there are persons elected, and I've said in my previous stance, we have two representatives. Yes, they are from the PNM. When they go down there, they do not represent the interests of the people anymore. They represent what the PNM government in Trinidad says to them, and they have to say, because you will hear her one tone saying that yes, they represent the needy miles, but then what is the difference between a year from now till the general elections to know that you have changed your mind, because you're sat on the Joint Select Committee, so therefore you should be able to voice. When you choose a representative of a party that wins an election, the person must have, and they can't go, you've seen it yourself, they cannot go beside or go against the party in which they are from. So one, you will have the situation whereby the Honorable Minister Shamfa and the Tobago East, they will have to say and go with what the PNM says, because that is the party they elected through, and they have to be the voice there. Yes, we need a whole collaborative effort of all the assemblymen elected, all the political leaders and independents who were there for the election, because PDP speaks for their people, PNM speaks for their people. Persons who did not vote, they represent the independent candidates, the other political leaders, because they did not vote. So therefore their voice was not there to be heard. So to go forward, we need a joint Tobago effort, an effort where all the assemblymen will go, all the independent candidates, all the political leaders to go before them with their ideas. Sit down before you go there to just get this done. Because for me, it is just a deja vu going over and over. PNM walking on, UNC walking on. You come with the same thing in Tobago again. So if we do not have that collaborative effort, where do we go from here? We're saying to go back to the polls, but they don't even want to decide on a presiding officer. That is why I gave a suggestion to put me as the presiding officer, what they have to lose. And then we could use that now to enact going back to them. Because I said to them, and I've written to the both parties, put me as the presiding officer, good. I'll work with the both political leaders and the assemblymen on finding a solution of going forward, planning the date for the next election, dissolving the parliament, and I would resign immediately forthwith, and then we go back to the polls. When we go back to the polls now, then we can go forward and say, okay, good. We got the next election coming. We know who will be in charge. Then we start to go the discussion. We're not putting the discussion on the ground because you'll just go back and go back. But continue the discussion after this election is done. And that's all I can say for now.
Right. So because we have just under 5 minutes left, and in all due, I still should ask if anybody else on the platform wants to say anything briefly, after which I'll ask the panelists to, we've kind of summarized where we are. We've kind of said what can be done going forward. Just to add any other little point that they may wish to get in before we close. So quickly, is there anybody, any member of the public on the platform who wants to make a final point? You've just got a eureka moment. You could guide us on where to go. No, going, gone. Okay, so we're now down to 3, and we're gonna ask you, Dr. James, to summarize your position, and then we'll ask Dr. Clyde, and then we ask Dr. Sawyer. And let me say now, thank you all very much. It has been a very lively and enjoyable discussion, if not result producing as yet, but it's never too late. I think we've set things in train. So Dr. James, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have studied the bills and I have found that they do not contain any autonomy content for Tobago. There is no autonomy for Tobago in the bills. And I believe Tobagonians should resoundingly reject the bill and come up with their own solutions that will be, of course, featured in a House of Assembly that meets and sits again.
Thank you. Well put. Yes, Clyde, Mr. Weatherhead.
Well, looking at what has come out of the JSC and looking at what went into the JSC, it is apparent that all the talk about this being a consensus of the people of Tobago has been rejected by the JSC. Not only have they rejected what was in the bill in 2018, but they have even rejected things that were in the THA Act.
Thank you. Dr. Angus?
I am very disappointed with what has been presented in terms of this bill for Tobago autonomy, and the fact that a number of areas have been removed. It looks as if more autonomy has been taken from us, where, some of the jurisdictions that we have held before, and those are not there now. And I feel very, very, very serious about that, very passionate about that, especially the area of the tourism product, which will be greatly impacted by not having access to that transportation, administration over it. And I think we as Tobagonians, we have 2 options. Yes, we want autonomy and it is long overdue. And so we have 2 options: to either, wait longer to have this whole exercise done over, or we have the option of saying to the Joint Select Committee, listen, Tobagonians spoke in 2016 when they sent that bill to Trinidad. Okay, if you don't have time to go over it, give us what is in that bill first, and we will work towards the other one later on. But at this time, those are the 2 options we have facing us, because the 3rd option is not viable in terms of accepting this bill the way it is.
Well, thank you. You all have said it in very plain and simple language. And, there's nothing much more to add. I simply am disappointed at the kind of disregard and dislike. I mean, I don't like to use the word disrespect, but to me, it is evident, and I have to use it, that took place in, as you said, Dr. Angus, one thing went in and another thing came out, and we don't understand that process. So we have to ask the Begonians to forget their party affiliations and all that, and sit down with Tobago in mind and respond to this situation as in the only way you can. You have no choice. Let me at this juncture thank you, panelists. Thank you for all who attended on the platform, who contributed, and certainly to CivilNet for mounting this discussion. And we hope that tomorrow night you will come out again and continue the views that you have expressed. Good evening and thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for a
Thank
fine
you.
job of moderation.
Thank you, moderator.
I had the best
Thanks to our host.
I had the best.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
will miss you tomorrow.
Yes. I will miss you.